So today I want to start a series on chords. I've been doing a lot of instructionals on lead guitar, and I wanted to shift gears to talk about chords. Today we're going to talk about chord triads. So I'm going to show you what I see as the foundations to chord triads. This kind of covers, in my opinion, 80 to 90% of chord triads. And then if you stick around, I'll cover the rest of triads as I understand them so that you have a comprehensive view. And when I get to that second section, the triads that I'll show you aren't used as much, maybe 5 to 10% of your playing, probably more like 5%, but it's useful as well. So let's get going. I did a series, actually just I think it was one video on the caged system, and that covers the foundations to chords and shows you how to build bar chords and how they connect and map on the fretboard. If that was overwhelming for you, then I think you'll find chord triads helpful. But even if you digested that, chord triads are another useful way of thinking about and looking at chords. First thing I need to do is we need to define what a chord triad is. So very simply, if we're thinking, I'm going to stick to this key of C major, and my C major scale, and if I was to start on that C note and I was to build to the third note, so that C is going to be 1, and 1, 2, 3, so there's a 3. Put those two notes together and then build again another third on top of that. So I'm stacking thirds. 1, which is really number 3, 3, 4, 5. 1, 3, and 5. And all those notes, they're all thirds apart, okay? And I'm playing part of a C major, open C major chord, okay? That's a chord triad. I'm going to do it in a higher place, start where you can maybe see things more easily. From this C, 1, 2, 3, so C and E, and then 1, 2, 3. There's a G, but I'm going to play that G. So G, E, and C is, I'm going to play them forwards, is ascending is C, E, G, okay? That's a chord triad, okay? So we're stacking thirds and we're just playing 3 notes. So when you play, for instance, and I know I've been showing you this in key of C major. I really shouldn't think in terms of keys at this point, but showing you with the C chord, if you were playing an A major chord, and I'm not playing the whole thing, I'm just playing the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. That's an A major chord triad, okay? It starts on the E instead of the A, so it's inverted, but it's that the E is the 5, the A is the 1, and the C sharp's the 3, okay? So it sounds like taps, doesn't it? If I was to start on the A, it's 1, 3, 5, okay? So, but those are chord triads. So they're 3-note chords. They're really smaller subsets of the full bar chords that maybe you've already learned. Like there's a A-shaped C chord, okay? They're just subsets of those. So if I take, for instance, this G chord, which I'm playing all 6, it's a 6-string chord. And if I was just to start it on the G on the 4th string, and there's 1, 2, 3, so there's G, B, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 5 together. That's 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. That's a chord triad. That's G major, okay? So, in fact, let's start there. And let's find our chord triads going up the fretboard. And this is going to remind you of caged if you learn caged, but it's not as I don't know, detailed or as big as the cage system is. These are only 3-note chords, and this we're also learning inversions, okay? So 1, 3, 5, that's the root inversion of G major. If I was to play starting on the, well, let me give you the names of these notes. It's G, it's B, and it's a D. So if I was to move up to a B here, I'm on the, 9th fret, still on the 4th string, and play B, and then D, and then G. I've inverted the chord triad. It's an inversion. It's the first inversion. B, D, G. That's a G chord. Okay, it's a chord triad. This is part of a C shape, but I'm only playing 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. Okay, it's first inversion. So there's my root. There's my first inversion, and then it's an A shape. It's the second inversion. I'm playing starting on D, G, and B. You can see it easier if I could do that, which I really can't. But okay, and then I'm back to where I started. This is that shape we started at down here, just an octave higher at the 15th position. So those are the G major chord triads on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. And as we're moving them, we're getting inversions. The idea is, one way to think of an inversion is the root triad, or the root inversion, is from low to high, G, B, D, okay? Then I take the lowest note and I raise it an octave. So now it's there. And now my lowest note's the 3rd note instead of which is the B, okay? Take that B, if I raise it an octave, which would go up to there, but I'll play it here for now. And now my lowest note is the D note, which is this note. Okay, that's one way to think about it. Now, I showed it to you this way because I wanted to show it to you all on those middle 3 string they're not pairs, trios, string trios. We're playing these all on the 4th, 2nd, and 3rd strings. What if we played them on the high 3 strings? Now I'm going to pick, let's see, pick the key. I'll pick a C major chord. We did this one earlier. There's C, there's E, and there's G, okay? So I'm on the top 3 strings, that's root. And then I want to raise this an octave, so I want the C to be on top of the chord, and that means E is going to be on my bottom, so there's an E. So this is E, G, C, okay? That C was here. We raised it an octave, okay? There's an octave. See, we were here. That C goes up an octave to here. And we got a new, that's the first invert. This is root, first inversion. And if we do this again, I'm gonna go faster now because you should have the idea now. Second inversion, okay? So this is a part of an A shape. Remember, I'm on just the first 3 strings. And this is the first inversion, that's part of an E shape. And this is second inversion, which is part of a D shape if you know your bar chords. And then you're back to the original one we played, okay? So that's the chord triads for majors on the middle 3 strings, the high 3 strings. We could learn these for the 5th, 4th, and 3rd strings. Like I'll do D. That's a C-shaped D chord, but I'm only playing 5th, 4th, and 3rd, okay? I'm gonna go faster on these, okay? That's part of a G shape, and that's part of an E shape, okay? When I went back to say that's part of a G, there's the full G bar chord if you played an open G chord, right? And barred it, played it at the 7th position, but only played, I'm sorry, only played the 5th, 4th, and 3rd strings. And then this, part of an E shape at the 10th position. All right, finally I should show you these on the lowest 3 strings, so I'll do a G chord. Okay, it's part of an open G chord. 1, 3, and 5. And then there's 3, 5, and 1. This is part of a D shape. And then 5, 3, and 1. I probably never play this one, now that I think about it. It's really part of a C shape, but it's got a 5th on the bass, okay? That's why I never play it. Or rarely play it, I should say. So those are major chord triads on all the string combinations. And they're just useful for melodies. So they're very useful for chord melody playing. They're useful for your lead guitar work. So if I was in the key of G, there's I kind of landed on the triad. I landed on the 3rd note. Might even resolve it further with the root. So I'm thinking part of the root triad for the G, C shape, G chord. So those notes, they're good resolution points. They're good starting points. They're good. The triads are good places to start from, because you might want to start resolved. And you might want to land on them, you know. Even now, I'm landing on them as a chord, but I could land on the single individual notes, and I just got to know what my note options are for the chord triad. So I'm in key of G still. See, I land on the G, or I could land on the B, or I could land on the D. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? There's another G, or a D. That's technically a power chord, by the way. But these are the major chord triads. Now, if you were to, I'll stick to G major right now. I'm 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. I take the 3rd note and I flat it. Flat it means go down a half step. There's a G minor. So you have G minor chord triads you can do. There's the 1st inversion. There's a 2nd inversion. Back to root again. G minor. We could do C minor on the first 3 strings. So there's root. There's 2nd or 1st inversion. And there's the 2nd inversion. Back to. I honestly on guitar don't think a lot in terms of inversions. I'm telling you the inversion names, but I just think in terms of shapes myself. It doesn't really matter. Like technically an inversion always has the notes in a consecutive order, 1, 3, 5, or 3, 5, 1, or 5, 1, 3. I really don't care if they're in sequential order. I care more about the shapes. So, but anyhow, that chord's wrong. So those are the higher 3 strings. I'm not going to take you through all of them. You can look them up online, but those are your triads for major and minor chords, and they're useful as home base. They're useful for landing your leads, for starting your leads whenever you want resolution. They're useful for visualizing, if your mind can transpose those or project them onto your scales. It's helpful, so like when I'm playing, if I was playing G minor, just to stick to that. I landed on that G, and I'm kind of picturing that straight line. Now that's a dominant, technically I'm thinking blues, sorry. See how I can interweave the triads, the inversions of those triads. So I just went from the second inversion and the first inversion down to root. I think I mislabeled those inversions when I called this. Yeah, that's actually root inversion. See, I don't think in terms of inversions normally, unless I have to. I think normally in terms of shapes. So, but if you want to know the music theory, then you want to get the labels right. So that's the root, and that's the second, and there's the first inversion if you're playing the high 3 strings. So okay, so now we've covered major and minor chord triads, and that will cover 95% of your playing for most music styles. But music theory does say that there are 2 other chord triads, so I do want to cover them, and they are useful, just not going to use them as often most time. Those other 2 chord triads are augmented chords and diminished chords. I think of these chords as being passing chords. They're often chords that kind of fall between the cracks of other chords. An example might be C major chord, C sharp diminished, and D minor. Another example might be for augmented. This is going to sound familiar as A minor. That's augmented chord. It actually should be like that. Yeah. So that second chord was an augmented. So these 2 chords, and I use augmented outside of as passing chords. It's really useful in melodic minor. When you're playing in a key that is derived from the melodic minor, it's useful. So these chords are symmetrical, and the way I'll demonstrate that is we'll start with, let's start with C. I'm at the 4th string, 10th fret, and a C augmented chord is 2 major thirds. So C to E is a major third, and E to G sharp is a major third. Okay? Now if I was to take that and I was to invert it like we did earlier, so I'm going to start on the E and then G sharp and C. It's the exact same chord, or same shape, same chord really too. The inversion of C augmented is E augmented, and I just moved up a major third. That space is a major third, okay? Which is 2 whole steps. There's a whole step, and there's a whole step. Okay? So there's an inversion, and here's another inversion, starting on the G sharp. So I'm moving the exact same shape up and down. So that's the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. If I was to do the high 2 strings, the high 3 strings, 1st, 2nd, 3rd strings, just move these in thirds, major thirds. It's one shape all the way through. So that's just the triad, that's just 3 strings of the augmented. I'm going to deviate from what I've been showing in this video where I've only been playing 3 strings for the triads, and I'm going to show you the bigger versions of these chords. So like I'm going to do D augmented because it's just handy at the 5th position. It's like a D major, but the G, I got the A sharp in there at the 1st string and also on the 4th string. Whoops. I could also play starting on the B flat. Let's see. Had to think about it, sorry. There's another augmented chord. It's B flat augmented. Again, it's symmetrical. It's an inversion of the D augmented. It's just, so really it's that's really the best shape I think you should think of in terms of, and I'm just starting on a G sharp. Let me do it on the G. From G to B is a 3rd, B to D sharp is a 3rd, D sharp to G is a 3rd, major 3rd, G to B, and I can move these in 3rds. I rarely play this chord with all the strings consecutively. Might play it like that. That's one way of playing it, with skipping a string. Just play around with it and see what you can come up with skipping strings. And in this case, I'm just omitting the 1st string, playing the middles. So but there's the middle. There's the 1st string. For diminished, diminished is 2 minor 3rds put together. So G to B flat and B flat to D. Okay, and it's the same idea. If I move this, I can move this. And this is a wicked fingering. I'm going to show you some easier fingerings in a second. But I can move this in minor 3rd intervals. And a minor 3rd is like 4 fret intervals, okay? See, I'm sorry. It's getting really difficult for me to finger when I get down here, but I never finger it like this, but I just wanted you to see the minor 3rds. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's a symmetrical chord. So like a G diminished chord is also a B flat diminished chord, and which is a D flat diminished chord. So the way I normally play these is different shapes. So for instance, I'll play that one a lot, where I'm playing 5th string, 4th, and 2nd. I'm skipping the 3rd string. I can hybrid pick it and do it. And that's one way to play it. And actually some of these, yeah, if I add that note, it's the full triad. These are the triads of the diminished, and a lot of times when I play diminished, I am adding the 7th and making them either a half diminished or full diminished. That's another video where I'll explore diminished chords more in depth. But this just gets your appetite whet for them. So if I was to start, I'll show you the higher 3 strings, or the upper strings, and show you what you can do with the diminished. Let's see. You just play 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. That's an A diminished. Again, also a D diminished, or C diminished. Also an E flat diminished. And then I can't reach that note, right? So I'd have to skip. Now I'm skipping the 2nd string. And I have that A, C, I don't really have the E flat in there. So what if how do I get A, C, and E flat in there? I guess I gotta do it like that. That's if I play them in order. I don't have to play them in order. So I'm not gonna show you the lower string combinations. I'll let you find them on your own. You can use Google, of course. But again, there's 4 chord triads: major, minor, diminished, and augmented. Major and minor are going to be most useful. They're great starting points, landing points. They're really, when you hear people talk about lead guitar and talk about playing or finding your chord tones, they're usually thinking of the chord triads. And so they're good starting points, landing points. So they kind of intermingle with lead playing. This helps you firm up your chord knowledge to build bigger chords. It might help you with the cage system if cage is overwhelming. It can help you play chord melodies. Of course, any chords you're learning are platforms for learning arpeggios. Then I got into diminished and augmented, which are the other 2 types of chord triads. And we've said that they're kind of passing chords, although you can land on them sometimes and stick to them. A lot of times they're kind of chords that are, I say passing, you have a chord here and then you put a diminished or augmented chord there to get to this one. It's like a bridge chord, you know, a chord that bridges the connection between 2 other chords. So that's kind of how augmented and diminished are used, especially the diminished. Augmented, again, might be more apt to landing on one of those, especially in a jazz context. Anything that uses melodic minor, it might do that. That's kind of an augmented thing, although it's technically a major 7 sharp 5. But, and again, things start to blur with me as I think about, you know, any major chord with a sharp 5, I can kind of think of as in the augmented category, even though that's technically a major 7 sharp 5. So depends on how you want to think about this stuff. But anyhow, I got more coming with chord instruction. So if you're liking the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Until next time.